Here's why India is going to beat China in the future. It comes down to one simple statistical point. 66% of India's population is 35 or less.
India has the potential of growing at double digit, but it is not happening for three reasons. First, India's banking system is extremely fragmented, and India's central government cannot establish a nationwide state banking system like China's, which can channel all the savings to fund infrastructures rather than letting all the Indian savings going into the stock markets or buying gold overseas.
Why is India still poorer than China?
Because China had a communist revolution and they had extensive anti-poverty programs, India was capitalist.
This is going viral in a lot of Indian circles right now around the globe. There's a post that says, Chinese build China, Indians help build America. Basically referring that a lot of Chinese grad students work in America, bring it back to China, start a company that goes global or stays domestic. But Indians just move to America and stay there forever.
Everything I've been experiencing so far in China, I've been comparing to India. It's the closest proxy that I have. And they're completely different. There's such different cultures and societies. And obviously you can't cover everything in a 1-minute video, but let me just talk about population and culture and etiquette. Even though both countries have a similar population, 1.4, 1.5 billion people, in Beijing at least, it doesn't seem like it's a billion-plus person country. In India, whether you're in Mumbai or a tier 2 city like Pune, there are people out and about on the streets just hanging out, and it feels like there are over 1 billion people in this country.
Chinese build China, Indians help build America. Many Chinese and Indian students come to the US for education, but around 80% of Chinese students return home after graduation, while most Indian students stay. Why do Chinese and Indian students in the US take such different paths after graduation? In my observation, one big reason is that Indians adapt more easily to Western society.
China builds China. Indians help build America. Yet one country transformed itself in one generation, and the other is still struggling. The question isn't talent. It's why the talent never comes home.
Here's why India is going to beat China in the future. It comes down to one simple statistical point. 66% of India's population is 35 or less.
India has the potential of growing at double digit, but it is not happening for three reasons. First, India's banking system is extremely fragmented, and India's central government cannot establish a nationwide state banking system like China's, which can channel all the savings to fund infrastructures rather than letting all the Indian savings going into the stock markets or buying gold overseas. Secondly, India has not conducted the land reform needed to give basic food security to the peasantry, which allows them to reduce their fertility and invest in education. So India has a surplus population problem, which the rural population constantly enters cities which cannot find jobs. And this puts a huge pressure on the urban public services like education, which wasted the potential for a generation of Indians. This is also the reason why India's educated elites, especially the brightest engineers, choose to leave India rather than build India. And lastly, even if India has solved the education problem and have produced a very educated workforce, there will be a huge resistance from building the kind of labor-intensive industries we are seeing in Bangladesh or traditionally across East Asia, because India's industrial system has been dominated by the oligarchs in the capital-intensive industries like Tata Groups. I think they prefer to get the governmental subsidies to monopolize the heavy industrial production, but the produce of all these heavy industries are not being used to fund India's power plant or railways because the Indian central government simply does not have the capital of the expertise or the coordination abilities to build the kind of a railway or power plant constructions we are seeing in China in the last decade. So for India to overcome these problems, India do need to strengthen the power of the central government, especially in terms of fiscal capabilities and the ability to coordinate different provinces for projects, as well as national standards from education to healthcare. And if India cannot do this within 10 years, India will also face a similar kind of demographic pressure China is undergoing right now. So the window of opportunity is really closing.
Chinese build China, Indians help build America. Many Chinese and Indian students come to the US for education, but around 80% of Chinese students return home after graduation, while most Indian students stay. Why do Chinese and Indian students in the US take such different paths after graduation? In my observation, one big reason is that Indians adapt more easily to Western society. I think their English is generally stronger and they have great social skills, they speak up, they are willing to stand out. Chinese students, honestly, tend to be more reserved in this area. That is why I think you often see Indian professionals rising to the top positions in so many companies, especially in Silicon Valley. On the other hand, staying in the US can be a real hassle for a lot of Chinese students. Some of my friends waited years for a green card. They couldn't even visit their parents during that time, and we call it the immigration prison. Plus, many Chinese students study in the US come from mostly middle class or well-off families. There's really no need to endure struggles like that. And don't forget, most of us are the only child because of the one-child policy, and there is a strong culture of filial piety in China. The idea is that as your parents age, being with them is really important. Another factor is that also China wants their students back, so they try to make things easier and more attractive for students to go back. For example, if you want to buy a car, you can have a tax discount. And also if you want to start a business, there are actually dedicated funds and incubators that you can apply for. So I guess in many ways, returning home isn't a bad option for Chinese students at all.
After independence, China and India started at similar levels of poverty. Both were large, populous, and scarred by colonial or imperial legacies. But they made fundamentally different bets on development. China centralized power, redistributed land, and later, after reforms, created a system where national development became a shared mission. Engineers, planners, and scientists were expected to build at home. Leaving wasn't rewarded, staying mattered. India took a different route. Its democracy preserved freedom and private enterprise early on, but it never built a unified national development machine. Bureaucracy slowed projects, land disputes delayed infrastructure, and corruption quietly taxed ambition. Over time, India became excellent at exporting talent rather than absorbing it. I once spoke to an Indian engineer who said, "In America, my work moves fast. In India, paperwork moves faster." That mindset didn't come from arrogance. It came from experience. China made staying productive. India made leaving rational.
China's 25 years away from their goal of achieving full socialism per their economic plans. And now I've been to China 3 times. The last time I was there was in 2007. And the difference that we see today versus when I was there is fucking staggering. They have gone 60 years into the future over the last 20 years. Meanwhile, in the United States, the only thing we've built is potholes and a lot of billionaires. Because our profits are not being reinvested into our country like they are in China. They are being invested into the bank accounts of the already extremely wealthy. Can you imagine, based on their current trajectory, where they will be in 25 years? Now, can you imagine where the United States will be based on our current trajectory in 25 years? It seems to me one of these economic systems is working for their people and the other one is working for like 6 fucking assholes.
Can India do for India what China has done for China? You see, India now has the largest population on earth, but yet there is extreme poverty there. So I'll ask again, can India do for India what China has done for China? The answer is quite simply, no, it can't. You see, in China, the government worked extremely hard to give everyone the opportunity for a better future. We're not seeing that in India. You see, India has the caste system, where if you're a darker skinned Indian, your opportunities are limited. And that appears to be a relic from the colonial past, the British Empire colonial past, where if you are a lighter skinned Indian, your opportunities are much, much better. Because the British Empire encouraged those who were lighter skin to dislike those who were of darker skin. After all, it's the only way the British Empire, no fewer than a few thousand, can control millions of Indians. As for China, China has a Chinese thing going on here, where it doesn't matter what Chinese you are, what ethnic group you are still Chinese. And every Chinese deserves to be helped. And that's why China has taken 800 million people out of poverty. My suggestion for the Indians is to give everyone in India the opportunity for a better life. And to get rid of this image of being slimy, can't be trusted, you only have to notice all the stories about fake call centers, about being swindled, about being scammed, and it's mainly from Indians. Surely there's a better way to make a living than doing that. Now, I'm not saying all Indians do that, but there seems to be a mentality of meism in India, whereas in China, it's collectively. We're all Chinese. We're all on the same boat.
Infrastructure is where development becomes visible. China invested relentlessly, often over 8 to 10% of GDP, for decades. High-speed rail wasn't just transport, it unified labor markets. Ports weren't just logistics, they powered exports. Cities weren't allowed to grow randomly, they were planned. This created jobs, productivity, and confidence. India underinvested and overnegotiated. Every road required years of approvals. Every power project faced political gridlock. Fragmented land ownership and legal challenges slowed everything. The result? Indian engineers can design world-class systems, but rarely get to build them at home. Meanwhile, China created a feedback loop. Build infrastructure, attract industry, raise incomes, reinvest faster. India's loop kept breaking. That's why China industrialized quickly, while India remained heavily informal.
Who set the system up? Not to play the colonialism card again, but do I have to mention that we were one of the richest countries in the world? The only thing I can completely agree with all the comments in this video is the lack of infrastructure, high rate of crime is due to the corrupt politics and extremely terrible legal system. And that's just the facts. And yes, I am from a privileged background compared to other people living here. And I will say it's not all rainbows and sunshine. It's just that I wanted to bring light to the other side that most people don't talk about because they love to villainize South Asian countries. That was the point of the video. People keep asking me, why did I go abroad then? Guess what? I still plan on going and living abroad. Why? Not because I hate my country or it's not nice enough here. It's because, time and again, I've said it before, the job market absolutely freaking sucks here. I hate the work culture here. I hate working overtime. And I'd like to get paid for my skills. Thanks.
India will be a hecking superpower by 2050.
They lost to Pakistan. Minuscule detail, they lost to Pakistan. The up-and-coming superpower lost to Pakistan. Like, you know the conflict those two had back in May? The one that randomly ended for no apparent reason? You know India got its stuff hardcore pushed in. According to Western sources like Reuters, they lost, at minimum, 3 jets in the span of like a week. In a conflict that they started. Keeping in mind this conflict was almost entirely aerial.
But I'm sure Pakistan must have also—
Ma'am, no!
Why did the ceasefire come so quickly? Who can guess? India has a greater population, a greater economy by orders of scale and magnitude, and they're losing. And they're losing to Pakistan. And this is the country upon which I existentially need to draw all my tech talent. This is the nation with all the tech talent. This is the nation of elite human capital. The place that's losing to Pakistan.
Indian engineers don't stay in America because they dislike India. They stay because the system rewards them. Higher pay, clearer rules, faster execution, and global platforms. Going back often means fighting bureaucracy, nepotism, and slow-moving institutions. For many, patriotism can't outweigh practicality. China flipped this equation. It sent students abroad, then pulled them back with funding, labs, housing, and authority. Success at home was celebrated and protected. Failure didn't end careers. In India, returning often means starting over, without guarantees. So the most successful Indians build Google, Microsoft, and Wall Street, while China's best engineers build Shenzhen, Shanghai, and national champions. One country internalized its brain power. The other exported it.
This is going viral in a lot of Indian circles right now around the globe. There's a post that says, Chinese build China, Indians help build America, basically referring that a lot of Chinese grad students work in America, bring it back to China, start a company that goes global or stays domestic. But Indians just move to America and stay there forever.
I mean, I don't know what is the stat on that, honestly, but if I were just to like eyeball it, right? For example, I guess these people that I'm going to mention are Indian Americans, but for example, Vivek Ramaswamy, like prominent politician in America, Hassan Minhaj, comedian. I feel like Indians just maybe assimilate better in America. Maybe in terms of like economic wise, not the culture or society.
I mean, I think there's just trade-offs. There's way more Chinese companies in the Fortune 500 than Indian companies, but there's also way more Indian American CEOs of white-founded firms than Chinese CEOs of white-founded firms.
Right.
Chinese, if they want to be the CEO, have to start their own company.
Right. I feel like Indians just they have their ability to mesh with like the white America is just a little bit better, and part of the reason is possibly because, obviously I'm not 100% correct, but possibly because of the colonization from the British, right?
Yeah,
Whereas
they
in
were
China,
colonized for like 300 years.
in China, never really colonized by any Western power, right?
No, I mean like maybe parts of Shanghai or Dalian or something like that. But I mean, like basically, long story short, I think that Indians have. See, I don't want people to get mad. I think they've given up on India. I think the cities are unlivable. You know what I mean? They've just given up. So they're just going to build India and America and rise up American infrastructures. Whereas China's still like, obviously like, you could argue that you could go to China and have a better lifestyle than America right now. Maybe not higher pay though.
Everything I've been experiencing so far in China, I've been comparing to India. It's the closest proxy that I have. And they're completely different. There's such different cultures and societies. And obviously you can't cover everything in a 1-minute video, but let me just talk about population and culture and etiquette. Even though both countries have a similar population, 1.4, 1.5 billion people, in Beijing at least, it doesn't seem like it's a billion-plus person country. In India, whether you're in Mumbai or a tier 2 city like Pune, there are people out and about on the streets just hanging out, and it feels like there are over 1 billion people in this country. I have been so surprised. I thought it would be like India, people all over the place, but it's just not the case, at least in Beijing. And number 2, I'm impressed by the poise and etiquette people hold publicly. You can have an alleyway that's pretty busy with cars and motorbikes and people, yet you don't hear much sound. You don't hear honking, you don't hear people yelling. It's pretty quiet and tame. So I'm curious what China looked like pre-modernization and what India will look like in the future as they progress and modernize themselves. And here are a few videos of what I'm talking about.
This isn't about intelligence, culture, or worth. India has immense talent. China had relentless coordination. One system turned national development into a collective project. The other turned individual escape into success. If India created systems that made building at home faster than leaving, how quickly could its story change?